Welcome back to InJustice on Sphere TV, where we discuss the laws of the land and how they affect you, the people. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at LegalMind. That's mine with a Y, because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Joined today by a couple of special guest co-hosts with me. First, I want to introduce Miss Umeka Lewis. How are you, Umeka? All right. Umeka does a lot of work in the criminal field, and I think you also have done a majority of your work in civil rights issues, right?
And yes, civil rights, tenants' rights, and criminal defendants' rights.
So when you say tenants' rights, are you with the man kicking out the lesser man, or are you the one actually helping defend?
I always am on the tenant side. You rarely will see me on the landlord side.
My sister.
That's
all
right.
right.
No homeless. You're not gonna be homeless on my watch.
All right,
that's right. If you do it right.
And we also have joining us today on a special crossover episode, so to speak, Miss Kira Laws from the show Society Now, which also airs on the Sphere TV. How are you, Kira?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I couldn't be happier to have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Two women, style and profile. Now, neither one of you have been on the show before, so I just want you ladies to feel as comfortable as possible. I'm very inappropriate, so please feel free to follow suit.
I know you.
Okay. Don't tell all my business now. We're going to jump right into some things and talk first about, let's hop over to Connecticut, where a young person by the name of Andrea Yearwood, 15-year-old who is a biological male that identifies as female, who hasn't yet taken any steps to actually transition, just swept a state high school track meet in Connecticut. What's interesting about this is that this person first won as a male, then backdoored and won on the female side. Now, I've taken a look at Miss Andrea, and I apologize for saying this, but this is the most manly looking woman I've ever seen in my life. I mean, mustache is probably just as full as mine.
Yeah.
I think biceps. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he orders his meals. Can I have a hamburger? You know, I mean, this is just a real strong ass looking little boy. He's taller, stronger, faster than everybody else. Is this right? Is this fair?
You know, I don't necessarily know if it's fair, because I thought that, to me, once you if you want to identify with whatever sex you're identifying with, I think you need to, part of that identification is staying in that lane, so you can make it clear for everybody that's what you're doing. So I think, to me, it was like a double dip. Like you're going to run as a girl or you're going to run as a guy. You don't run as both, because you want to show that you're serious about this identification piece. That's my thought.
But what about the fact that even if she sticks to this lane of womanhood, getting to do the athletic events for women when he is psychologically she may feel like she's a woman, but biologically still a man.
You're made like a man.
All the acumen and attributes that a man does.
All that, and you're not, and like you said, he's not taking, or he doesn't seem to be taking anything right now.
Right. No, I mean, the only thing he looks like he takes is milk.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
Does a body good.
I mean, he's a growing man boy, and at this point, and like I said, he hasn't taken any steps yet.
Yeah.
I just don't see how you get to cross over at this point, especially when you're developing as a man. You haven't even taken the time out to shave your mustache. I mean, you could do the little things. In my opinion,
women don't have to shave their mustaches.
And I've known a few Mabel Mays
or their chest.
They don't have to.
Yeah,
choose to, right?
Or legs. Yeah, underarms.
But that's just gross.
I mean,
it's preference, right?
And it's preference sometimes to not have to deal with the pain of waxing. I'm lucky that I'm not that hairy. I'm not, but I do have family members and close friends that prefer to wax. And it's painful.
That's what's up.
I don't necessarily know. My issue is the sensitivity of the school, because I'm like, you're being very sensitive to him in this situation, but you allowed him to run as both. And I feel like if you're going to be serious about this identification piece, you need to choose. Like, he has to choose.
It's a little bit confusing. It's a little bit confusing. Did he run as a boy at one point, and then she run as a girl?
He ran the same meet?
I think that, and I'm not sure, I don't have all the information on this. I think in one event, before she had made the decision to transition, so to speak, I'm a boy, got to run as a boy. You know what? Now I'm coming into my own as a woman, and let me go ahead and run this race. But again, ladies, do you think it's right for a transgender to compete in their natural sexes, the opposite natural events?
I guess it's hard because it does seem like an unfair natural advantage that she would have against the other young ladies at the high school. I think the only way that it could really be solved is if there's just no sexual distinction.
But then
everybody just run.
Then oh my God.
The girls would always lose, right?
Right. Like then there might not be many girl winners, and then that goes back to another issue, right?
But don't women fight all the time for women independent? Women are
right.
Equal.
I don't think that would work either.
That's too much, right?
So are y'all not for equal rights?
Baby steps.
I'm for equal steps. Maybe they need to have a category for those who identify, who are like in that place, in that space of.
But isn't that discriminatory? Now you're taking out a whole sect of people and saying, you know what, we're going to identify you as other than what, because that's also disrespecting what they choose to be called to identify.
Well, then should there be some type of counseling given to them, like you understand that by doing this you actually are competing and you're giving you're not being sensitive to those in that group, right? Mm-hmm. Because now you have an advantage over them because you have what you said. It's that whole thing. You're not playing, I guess.
Or maybe they should just have to break his toe. Put him on equal playing field.
Some Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, what I'm saying. Now run.
Now run. Can you still compete?
Right. If you can do it with a broken toe, by all means,
then you are qualified.
You go, young lady boy. That's what I feel like. But
it's interesting.
It is an interesting concept, and I'm wondering how they're going to play this out later. I mean, because at this point, think how that transitions into adult athletics. If I suck at a sport, can I just say, you know what, I'm just going to take this L, be the opposite gender, and go ahead and dominate?
I mean, really, do you think somebody is that desperate to win that
there
they
are
change
some
their
sick
gender?
people. I don't think that
absolutely.
people. Yeah, I don't think that it's
then
the
they
normal
should win.
thing.
Then if they're willing to do all that, then let them have it. Take
just
that gold.
Go ahead and go.
Yeah, take that gold medal. You're gonna change your whole gender just to win.
Got a lot of crazy people that will do crazy things.
Man, people do some Nancy Kerrigan. You just said it like think about that. Let's go back in time. Like people do some crazy stuff.
That was crazy.
Some crazy stuff to win.
All right, so let's jump over to a different issue. We're gonna keep it with the kids though. I don't know if you ladies remember the sniper issue that we had going on with Lee Boyd Malvo. Do you remember that? It was the young kid with the older black guy. They went around sniping in the DC area. Mm-hmm. The child was sentenced to life at that point. And the Supreme Court came back and said, you know what, we are not going to
uphold that
for a juvenile getting life because it violates the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment, for those who don't know, says that certain punishments can be cruel and unusual, and if it's justified as a cruel and unusual punishment, it violates your constitutional rights. And the Supreme Court has said that giving a life sentence to a juvenile violates the Constitution in as much as it constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. But they killed 10 people. They injured others back in 2002 in DC. And I don't know. It's not like he was pushed into doing this. I mean,
he was the actual sniper. Like he actually was sniping. And
but you say people. You agree that a juvenile shouldn't be sentenced to life. Why is this any different than any other person that commits this type of heinous act?
I think about it from the perspective of, we talk about what happens overseas when they train these children soldiers, and the mind, like the mind of someone who actually if you're actually able to be trained to actually kill, to kill, it's something. I think about manipulation, acceptance, validation, identity, like all of those are wrapped up. It's not just I don't think it's well, you did it, especially at this age.
And
you did it.
Yeah, they're so influential at this age, especially with this older gentleman doing this. Like, I don't know what their relationship was. They were just
it's so. I think it's so many some unknown things there. Like, but clearly this person was a person of influence. So you're not going to just go around and kill people just because.
Right.
You have to have that person has to be
to that.
Yeah, you have to be introduced to that. And if he probably thought, well, you're a kid, so they're not going to do much to you, but you're going to do it under my watch.
So bottom line, you don't think no matter how heinous the crime, that a juvenile should receive a life sentence?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with a life sentence nor a death penalty for juvenile.
Because I think there's something psychologically, growth. It's a growth method. It's
so if you're 18 and do it, it's okay. But if you're 17, it's not.
I'm not even gonna say 18. I just
think you don't want to even go there with me. Like,
well, I mean, but
18. I don't know.
So at what age do you think the life sentence should be applicable then? I mean,
when you can appreciate the crime, when you
17-year-old
can't appreciate what they did,
but an 18-year-old can.
No, I don't agree with an 18-year-old necessarily, or a 20-year-old necessarily.
So then at what age would you find that cutoff then?
I don't think you can. Personally, I don't think you can. It should be, or you can set it at an age. I think it has to do with the mental state of a person. Honestly.
Does that mean that you don't want the life sentence at all?
I think life sentence is appropriate for certain individuals that can understand and appreciate the crime that they committed, and they know what they're doing, and there's no manipulation, and there's no growth there. They're not mature. So
an 18-year-old is mature enough and can appreciate going to war and pulling the trigger and defending your country, but they can't appreciate going on a rampage.
If that is a person that just returned from war and they did that.
Not just the return. I'm talking, so you have to go to war. At 18, you can go to war.
Right.
Why are you allowed to go to war? But for you, your argument is that at 18, you're not necessarily capable of appreciating your actions.
No, I didn't say at 18. I said an 18-year-old may not. So some 18-year-olds may, some 18-year-olds may not. Some 20-year-olds may. Some 20-year-olds may not. Some 30-year-olds may.
It's all very subjective, right?
Yeah, so exactly. I guess the point I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I think like for the whole, 18-year-olds and going to war, I personally, I think it's way too young for anybody to go to war at 18, because I don't necessarily think they're mature enough then to make decisions. And a lot of them a lot of times when people sign up for going into the military and stuff like that, it's because they feel like that is their only option for life. You know what I mean? Not because they just have a desire to go out and hold a gun. Some may, but for most people, it's like, that's my option for life right now. And so I don't necessarily know if they're ready to make that type of decision. I don't think they're ready, mature enough at all.
I got to disagree with you guys on this one. I think that there comes a time when people need to be held accountable for their actions. And I think that time comes when you make adult actions, then it's time for you to be held accountable for your adult actions in an adult way.
It's not an adult action to commit a crime.
No. It is an adult action to go out and snipe 10 different people plus some others. I think that you can't say that, that's just some child's play going on when you this is an affirmative action that they took. This wasn't some, which we're going to talk about here in another second, some I didn't realize we were being silly doing some type of things, but you took affirmative steps time and time again. You saw people's lives being ended, and this was serial killing. This wasn't an isolated incident. And I think that we live in an age, just like as time goes on, people evolve, people become able to do certain things. What physically we can do as 13 and 14-year-olds now, we may not have been physically been able to do 100 years before. The same premise, I think, goes for the mentality. We live in a different age. We live in a technology age where children are learning things faster than the type of content that they learn is learned way earlier than they would have been even in the 50s. So these children are growing up with a maturation process that we didn't grow up with.
But they're growing up with a disconnect also. You have children that sit around all day, young men, teenagers that play video games all day. They're playing these soldier war games, and they have a disconnect from life.
And maybe even insensitivity to life and death.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to it. It's a lot layered.
We're really coddling these pre-adults for their post-adult activities, and I just don't.
But it's not appropriate for an adult either, so you can't really call it an adult activity. It's
not an adult. It's not. I'm not saying it's an adult activity because it's not something that you normally see children doing. You don't normally see children sniping. You just don't. What you normally see children doing is fighting.
Right.
But to take a gun, go out, shoot some people, and then come back, there are certain things that require you to feel the full force of the punishment for it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you say, well, this is a mentally challenged person, which the Supreme Court has said before, you can't. Someone who is found to be mentally incompetent can't be given a life sentence because of the fact that they are mentally incompetent, and that qualifies as cruel and unusual punishment. I understand that because that is a limitation. But when you have shown that you can comprehend what you did, if you ask this boy, did you know what you did? Yes. Did you know what would happen when you did it? Yes. Are you remorseful about your actions? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't matter. But you knew what you did. You knew why you did it, and you decided to take that action. I think you should be treated like everybody else. Now, that being said, we still got to pay for some of these shows that we do. So we're going to go ahead and get an advertising in. This portion of the show is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. Did you know that only 4 states in the United States offer financial education? 33% or more than 77 million Americans don't pay their bills on time. 39% of Americans carry credit card debt from month to month, and 39% of adults say that they don't have enough savings. Don't become one of these statistics. Let Houston Housewives of Finance advise you on increasing your cash flow and becoming your own money manager by scheduling your complimentary personal financial strategy. Contact Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463 or email them at info@houstonhousewivesoffinance.com. Ask them how you can participate in a complimentary financial literacy workshop near you. Houston Housewives of Finance are the new faces of the new age of financial services. Now, as we move forward with the rest of the show, I want to go ahead and say hello to our Facebook friends and family. Thank you for watching our Facebook Live feed. Be sure to catch the rest of the show after later this evening. It'll drop in a couple of hours, but you can always watch us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, www.thesphere.tv, or on your Google Android device. We love you and we appreciate your continued support. Thank you, Facebook. Now, let's move over and stay in the same vein of children being adults, and talk about over in Wilmington, Delaware. A 17-year-old Delaware girl was just convicted, and I don't know if you ladies remember this, but a little while back, 3 girls faced charges after a girl that they attacked in the bathroom ended up dying. She died of a cardiac arrest. So one girl was given a 2-year probation. I'm sorry. She was given the girl that we're going to talk about right now was just given 6 months in a juvenile detention center, plus 500 hours of community service, plus another 2 years of probation at the age of 19. Another girl was given 300 hours of community service and 18 months of probation. Third defendant was acquitted on a conspiracy charge. Young girl dies as a result of fighting. Do you think that 6 months of juvenile detention, and this is a 17-year-old girl, is that adequate? Again, these are adult behaviors getting childlike punishments.
Well, just to be clear, the life sentence for the Malvo young man is not the same here.
Oh, it's not the same. Okay, it's not the same. But again, that wasn't intentional. This was and to be fair, the girl was convicted of criminally negligent homicide, meaning that there was no showing of intent to commit murder in this one. It happened as a byproduct. She was reckless disregard for life, and as a byproduct, girl dies.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to look at it from the victim standpoint, and then you look at it from the mother of the assailants or the defendant's standpoint. And 6 months is reasonable to that mother or to that defendant because she didn't mean to kill her. It was not intentional. Now the victim, however, and that mother, she probably deserves life in her eyes. And the middle ground is where we have to try to find some way to get this to make sense to me. I don't think either one makes sense. The life sentence in the 6 months is just
All right, so I'm going to address you made a couple of points here. The first point that you made was that the family of the defendant is saying that, hey, 6 months is probably adequate because she didn't intend to kill.
Right.
What she did intend to do was commit an aggravated assault.
Right.
Aggravated assault, at least in most states that I know of, is a top degree felony, either first or second degree, depending on where you are. Which comes with a range of punishment for a multitude of years. If you're looking at the state of Texas, if you're looking at a second degree felony, you're looking at up to 20 years just in the state of Texas. I don't know what every other state is going to be, but you're looking at least 5 to 10 years for an aggravated assault. So
or in probation for a first time offender.
Or probation. Yeah. But this wasn't a probation case. This was obviously they felt like she should get some kind of time on this. So even in an aggravated assault situation, 6 months seems very docile for a punishment. So that's first. Second point is, I know I've had clients, or I've known of other people's clients that have said, even in a rape case, and they were like, well, can't they get probation, on this aggravated rape case, because family members are always going to want the best for their child or for their family members. So that really doesn't sit well with me. Now, on the other side of that, I don't think that, again, you've heard of the eggshell client, right? Mm-hmm. That is you take the client as they are. So if this girl ends up dying as a result because of a cardiac arrest, because of what you did, it doesn't matter what you intended or did not intend to do. You intended to cause harm, and there was a grave bodily injury to this girl that resulted in her death. I don't know how you justify that, and to me, this is another coddling thing. Kira? I remember when this case first came out, and I was reading about it, and I was really frustrated about the whole situation, because I was like, number one, is some deep, of course, I might be the softy here, but I'm like, some deeper issues going on, because we have glorified throughout time, the jumping in the bathroom, the girl fights in the bathroom, the boy fights in the bathroom.
Was that show the Bad Girls Club?
Yeah, Bad Girls Club. But even before Bad Girls Club, I remember growing up watching movies about girls fighting or people fighting in the bathroom in school, you know. And when is enough, right? But you never saw the result of the punishment in the movie or the TV show. Right. You just saw the fight. And I think that's where the softness comes in, because it's kind of like, okay, well, if you actually would have showed the whole thing play through, show that, this could have resulted in this, or that, the action could result in jail. They could result in possible death, debilitating injury. The consequences, then we would have less of this. So I understand from the perspective of the defendant's parents or family members are like, well, you know what? They didn't really think the whole thing through. It was just the fight, And so for that purpose, yes, I do understand what you're saying, Brennan. They had an intention to fight, whatever the result was
about,
they had the intention to fight. Now thinking it through, probably no. Then I also understand the victim probably wants some type of justice, and whatever that justice looks like to them. I'm in the middle on this one, because I really don't know what would be adequate punishment for something like this, because the intention was not to kill. You know what I mean? And though life or death penalty is so extreme. What is adequate punishment for school age kids that, are seeing this over and over again, but not seeing the result? Like, how do you fix it? I'm not sure what the answer is to it. I'm not quite sure. I think that I'll say this, they are blessed that they're getting what they're getting. Because it could be a lot. They're blessed. And no doubt. They're blessed.
And a part of me, go ahead. Huh?
And I would sue the school.
Oh
right.
My God.
You're right. Absolutely.
And a part of me, I hate to say it, but a part of me is just like, about time some black folk got some of these white privileges of the penal system.
So that's what I'm feeling. I'm glad that they're getting it off really well, considering, because this would not have happened in another situation. We see worse.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm
it's
this
easy
is really
to give
good.
them that when it's a black victim. How about when it's not a black victim?
Oh man, there's so much.
Well, that's when the privilege is different.
Are you saying that if the girl had been a white girl, would they have gotten?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No.
That. That's not. It wouldn't happen like that.
Because I mean, they're like, well, it's just another one of them. No sweat off our backs,
right?
But that is unfortunately the situation, the reality of the situation that we live in right now.
But a lot of times I look at it like, when it's a black on black crime, it's like, oh, good, we have 2 down. When we're sent to prison for life, we're deporting to prison for life, and the one's in the grave. So
yeah, it's
they didn't take advantage of that in this situation.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of grateful that it didn't happen like that.
Yeah. And we're going to get into a little bit more about this prison system in just a second, but again, we got to make these coins work for us and not against us. This portion of the show is sponsored by The Sphere. Are you starting your business and looking for a place to advertise? Do you have a need to reach out to thousands of people across the world to build your brand or sell your product? If so, get your product placement and advertising needs handled right here at The Sphere. We offer a wide variety of content delivery platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Plus, we have a vast demographic reach within the United States as well as modern countries across the globe. Our enriched content and inspiring dialogue coupled with your strategic ad is surely to hit the mark every time. Call us today at the area code 832-772-7789 or send an email over to advertise@thesphere.tv. Now, to keep in this vein of the prison system, we're going to talk about a little thing called debtor's prison. And it's an issue right now in headlines over in South Carolina. Lady by the name of Tawanda Marshinda Brown. It's a lot to say.
It's a lot.
By the way, a resident of Lexington, Kentucky, is involved in a lawsuit. ACLU is bringing forth a lawsuit to end the debtor's prison tactics in Lexington County, South Carolina. Miss Brown is a single mother of 7 children, 5 of whom live with her. She was stopped and ticketed by officers for driving on a suspended license with no tag light and was instructed to appear in court. She ended up not being told that she could actually waive some of the fees to get a court-appointed attorney, ended up taking a plea. That plea involved a sentence of a fine totaling $2,407.63 to be paid back in monthly installments of $100. Ms. Brown told the judge, hey, look, I'm a mother of 7. I work at Burger King. I don't make a lot of money. I can only pay, and she gave her a number. She said, I can pay half that. I can pay $50 a month, and that's all I can pay. Judge said, you know what? I don't really care about that. You're going to pay what I told you to pay what you owe. A couple months later, I think she was able to make like 5 payments, and then her Burger King check started bouncing. Burger King, y'all got to do better. I mean, how embarrassing that as a franchise, you can't even pay your people the minimum wage. That's disgusting, and that's a whole nother issue that we'll talk about. But after making 5 payments, she wasn't able to afford it anymore because her Burger King check started bouncing. The judge ended up sentencing her to prison or to jail to spend 90 days in jail. 4 months later, the sheriff's deputies show up at her door and she served with a bench warrant. They ended up saying, you know what, you got to spend 90 days in jail on this just because you couldn't pay the fines that you told us that you weren't going to be able to pay in the first place. This is a recurring cycle of poor people being disadvantaged by a system that is designed to keep them disadvantaged.
Yeah.
I don't understand what we're doing here.
So this is a real sensitive issue.
It's everywhere. It's not just in South Carolina. It's from South Carolina all the way to California. This is a real thing. Debtor's prison exists in America, and it's not supposed to. I
think we just got, I don't know, the people that are like in control and have, the decisions or the options to, waive some of this, it's very extreme, and I'm like, if they have kids at home and you're saying, you violated whatever the penalty was, we're going to put you in jail for 90 days, 3 months. I'm like, so who's going to take care of the kids? Right. So you're making the cycle repeat itself, because now these kids have to take care of themselves, or they have to find someone to take care of them. That's more money in the hole. Bills are not getting paid. Things are not getting done. And I'm like, like you said, it's a cycle, and it's made to keep people impoverished. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
And I think that this statutory, fines, or, they say, this is going to be your bare bones, what you have to pay. I think that it also becomes a type of cruel and unusual punishment when you tell somebody you have to pay something that you can't afford.
It happens all the time.
They're ticketed. They're ticketed fines that come across, and if you don't do it, then you go to jail. It was never intended for you to go to jail in the first place. But guess what? If you don't do what we wanted you to do financially, then we get to have an incarceration punishment for you. And I don't know how it's not looked at in these judges' eyes as something utterly ridiculous that they've told you what they can and can't pay. Why aren't you doing more to assess people's financial background? You can't pay. Show me proof. If you can show me proof of your monthly income, then guess what? We're going to do something to work it out for you.
How do you prove a negative, though? What if you have no income? Like, that's part of the problem, too. Show me proof that you don't have an income, and most of them don't have an income to show them that they don't have proof. So, for example, if I don't have a job and if I haven't worked in months or years, how can I show you that I don't have an income? The only way is if I get some sort of government aid. If I'm in the middle and I don't get government aid, and say I live with my mother and I, just have no income and I'm living off other people, then how do I show you I have no income?
So this is going to sound very Republican of me.
Okay.
But at some point as an adult, you have to be able to get a job doing something, whether it's Burger King.
You're right. But at the point that the judge is asking you this question is where you're going to have to deal with that response and answer.
So to answer that question, then the judge could easily say, you've got a certain amount of time to find any type of job, and you have to show me proof that you are going to get said job. And then once you've gotten said job, we're going to defer your payments for a month or two to give you a chance to come up with it. Because obviously you weren't hurting so much before that you didn't
drove a car with no license.
Right. Or you weren't searching for a job where you're sitting at your mama's house, or if you were, maybe this will help you inspire you to go to go get said job. But there are ways where I'm not trying to coddle a person so much so that you dispense with all.
It's not always about coddling, and this is the problem. And that's kind of what was the problem with you're turning into this person. I hate to tell you, I've been knowing you for a long time before you was this rich, big-time lawyer.
Girl, but I still walk past Payless every day and say, ooh, those are nice.
But with that being said, I was having a conversation about Sandra Bland, and when another attorney that I know, and he says, "You mean to tell me she could not bail out, and her bail was $500? You mean to tell me she couldn't borrow $500 from somebody? You mean that there is no way that she could not have come up with that $500?" And to me, it was kind of sad, because I remember when $500 was just not sitting around.
Okay.
And it's not the case anymore, but I remember that. I don't want to get to the place where I'm so far removed that I forget that hurts. $500 hurts. That's like rent for some people.
Right.
And
here you are walking around with $500 curls in your head right now.
My curls are $1,000.
But I'm saying I'm not. That's why I said I'm not taking away from the fact that certain people don't have money at that time, which is why I said you could defer it. I do think that every able-bodied person should be able to get a job in some shape, form, or capacity. There's no such thing as you are simply unable to get any job in the world.
Well, yeah, but then you also have the people that have who are unable because of their, they've been injured, or they don't have the mental capacity, and they just are.
But those are nuanced. Those are nuanced and caveated subjects. We're not talking about that type of person here. We're talking about somebody who is able-bodied, can have a job. She obviously was able to get a job at Burger King, and the overarching issue is not whether she can pay. The overarching issue for her is not that she's unable to pay, but what the judge is what the judge is going to do when she says, "This is what I can afford."
No, how about what is wrong? Why does it have to be money? Like, what is wrong with community service?
Like, there's other ways to pay off fines.
You can serve your debt to society besides freaking money. Like, why do we have to?
So should people have choices? Should they be able to check off a box and say, you know what, instead of me paying some money, I'd rather do this community service?
I don't know if the person should have a choice, but I think the judge should be required to look at the options. Okay, well, if you're telling me you can't afford it, then option B is this.
Yeah, exactly.
But don't you kind of set up another failure type scenario if you're giving me 500 hours of community service, I've got 7 children, and I simply run out of time because in the midst of having to work to pay for these children, which means I'm probably working double, overtime and everything else. I'm tired. I still have to go out here and average at least 5 hours a week on community service. I skip one because I'm just that tired. I'm physically getting ill from it. Aren't you then setting that person up again for failure?
You could let the court know about that. That's something that you can actually let the court know, and maybe they can defer that to another time. Say, when's your vacation? What days are you off of work? And deal with it that way. But I think that it should be an option. Even somebody with money, if they don't want, if they would rather get some sort of service for somebody, then it should be an option. If you want to, do a class for kids or what have you, there's a lot of options out here nowadays. There's a lot of internet options. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of ways to serve the community in a lot of different. Are you watching basketball?
What?
Oh my God!
Can you stay out of my business?
Right now.
I'm actually preparing for the next segment. You all up in my hosting business.
Oh my!
You focus on what you focus on.
I didn't feel like you was listening to me. I was
listening. I think he was listening.
Man, I mean, you know what? This is why you can't have everybody on your show. You got these high yellers that come in here and act a donkey, and then want to take over some stuff. My spirit told me maybe not, but I was like, nah, spirit, you just be quiet. We're gonna let this happen.
Hey, no spirit. You know me too.
Hilarious.
NT ways. I need to make these coins for the show.
Get your money.
This portion of the show is sponsored by Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, our vision is to create a welcoming practice that will offer exceptional dental care and a lifetime of dental wellness. We are committed to the finest possible oral care and the overall health and well-being of our patients. Elite Dental Wellness is built upon a foundation of integrity, expertise, and service. Through our commitment to modern dentistry, continuing education, and friendly atmosphere, we strive to make our patients feel that they are a part of our family. Dentistry can be scary, daunting, and uncomfortable. Dr. Baptiste and her team work tirelessly to ensure your comfort. Make your appointment today with Dr. Chandra Baptiste at Elite Dental Wellness at 713-789-8680. Now, we're going to keep, I like to keep a little continuity in the things that we talk about. And we've been talking about, race, poor, and how it affects. So let's talk about something which was my next segment before I was so rudely called out for doing my job. I don't know if you ladies are into sports at all, but there's a guy by the name of Jason Whitlock who's come under fire. Some have called him Charlemagne the God. Another Breakfast Club host called him a coon. For some of the statements that he's made in the past as it relates to black people. But if you recall, I don't know if you ladies remember this, but just recently, LeBron James, the NBA basketball superstar, y'all may not know who LeBron James is, had his house vandalized in as much as the front gate was spray painted with the word nigger on it. LeBron went on media and talked about it, saying that this is something that we face. It's hard, being a black man in society. These are still things that he has to face. Jason Whitlock, a sports contributor, he has a show on, I think it's on ESPN. He has a couple of shows that he bounces around on. Went on to say that person of LeBron's stature, and I'm going to paraphrase this, a person of LeBron's stature, racism doesn't exist for him. That racism is a conduit of the poor and not for the rich black person. If you look at people like him, Oprah Winfrey, and LeBron James, racism doesn't touch them because it doesn't affect them in the same way. Ergo, racism is for the poor because that's who it actually hurts. I'm going to start off by saying I think this was stupid. And I say it with an accent because it requires one, because that's how stupid it was. It went beyond the bounds of American stupidity into something else. So this was stupid.
He's an idiot. And I don't know this man. I might not ever meet him, but I feel like he's not an idiot. His statement was idiotic. And I think that you have to understand that, when you talk about racism being something that only affects poor people, that could be, nothing could be more untrue. I mean, nothing could be more untrue.
It's ignorant.
Yes, money is green, but when they see you, they see a black person, and that, and they're going to call you whatever they're going to call you. It has nothing to do with how much money you have in your pocket, because when they don't like you, they don't like you. And I mean, I know that LeBron can identify with that. When he left Cleveland, he went to Miami. He dealt with some stuff, and it had nothing to do with him having money in his pocket. They didn't care.
And what Brennan was saying, I don't know if you guys know who LeBron James is. A lot of people don't know who LeBron James is, but they do see a black man in front of them.
He's black.
That's one thing they do know. They may not know his money, so they can treat him a certain way. There are people that are so elite, they don't watch basketball and they have no interest. They go to the orchestra and they'll hand them their coat and go sit down. So it's beyond. It does still affect you no matter what your income bracket is.
And not even talking about the anonymity of a person who should be known, but you talk about even at the strata that they are in, the type of race. Just because I'm not experiencing your racism doesn't mean that I'm not being disparaged by racism in my strata. Everybody's going to have a different experience with that racism. If I'm trying to build a brand, Kanye West, when he talked about building his clothing line, talking to Sway, saying,
crying to Sway.
We're not gonna talk about that, but in talking about that, saying all the roadblocks he hit because of being a black man trying to enter this dominatingly white genre of business. You talk about, I don't think Oprah Winfrey had it easy going up that plateau ladder, and as the bigger you get, the more obstacles you face as a black person. Your struggle is not my struggle, but we still have the same type of struggle.
We still struggle, yeah.
And you think about, I talk about the elitism, and even in Hollywood, we saw how people were coming out, this past year or so, talking about how they want, the Oscars and all this stuff to identify and recognize black people's accomplishments because there's racism even in Hollywood. The blackout, because it's racism in Hollywood. That doesn't mean they're not experiencing it. They have more money in their account than I do right now. So you know what I mean? It's not, they're not disqualified from it because they have money. It's still there. So that was a very ignorant statement.
And one of the sad things I think that you extrapolate from this, there's a couple of things that you can try to extrapolate. One is this mentality that black people have to be, we're divided on even how we are disparaged.
That's good.
Like you got this rich black guy saying some things that some white person you would expect to be saying, not a fellow black person to say, you know what, that doesn't.
This shouldn't bother you.
I expect a white person to say, look, if you're rich, you shouldn't have the same type of problem. I don't expect a black person. You've been there. You said you grew up poor and then you became rich. Surely, if a person calls you nigga right now, you are affected, and just because it's a word being used doesn't mean that somewhere down the line you also won't have it hurt your pocketbook.
Absolutely.
Because you can lose out. Prime example, Colin Kaepernick, the football player, formerly of the 49ers, that can no longer find a place
job
in the NFL. He's one of the top arguably one of the top, I'd say top half at least, of starting quarterbacks in the NFL who can no longer find a job because he protested for black rights.
Protested respectfully,
and I'm
He's
considering
on this.
respectively protesting the NFL. It's going to be very hard this season because my Raiders are going to be doing really, really well.
We'll see.
But I might just watch Raider games and no other games. That's my protest.
But isn't that what most people do though? Watch their team.
No, I totally watch all the games.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough. But and so that's one thing where black on black disparity is an issue. Saying that one struggle should be better than the other, and all that did, what his words were perpetuate certain ideologies that even the poor, it separates the poor and the rich.
Absolutely.
Blacks, where
classism.
instead of us coming together to fight in unified front on an issue, you got poor people that have that same mentality. Well, shoot, you don't know what I'm going through. How can you talk about, if Oprah Winfrey walked up in here talking about my sister? Well, you're not really my sister because you don't know what the hell I go through. All that did was perpetuate that same type of ignorant belief. And it came from somebody who's too educated to be that ignorant.
Yeah, that's the problem. And it's so unfortunate. Like I said, it's classism. Like, you're trying to separate people based on their bank account. Like, you can't do it. It's still the same. I mean, like you said, it may not look the same, but it's still racism, period.
Some of these sports writers and I don't know, was he an anchor or something? I don't know. But they just try to say things that incite people, Maybe that was just one of his things, like Stephen A. Smith.
At some point, you got to decide, is the dollar worth your morality? Yeah, and I really don't think that this was about his dollar. I
think he
honestly
really felt
think
that way.
This is his thought process.
I mean, maybe.
He said it.
But I just heard of him today, so.
Now, that
take it back yet.
Right, that being said, if Donald Trump offers me $1 million to go work for on his cabinet, I'm like, what's up?
You're out of here,
Donald.
You're out of here.
You're gonna go work for the Donald.
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, now I might spike his punch with a little bit of cocaine and have him to take a drug test for it. But I'm still going to
take the job.
Right, I'm still gonna go take this job. Yeah. Just wait for it. It'll happen. I still got our backs. But anyway, last thing I really want to get into today. I almost did a preacher thing and said on today.
Turn to your neighbor, say neighbor.
Is talk about the Texas deputy's husband. Texas sheriff's deputy's husband that's accused of an illegal chokehold that led to the death of a Denny's customer. I don't know if you, ladies and gentlemen, have seen the video on this. It's a really, really disappointing video. Somebody was taking a video of this guy who puts this person in this chokehold. This is a Hispanic person that ended up being killed. John Hernandez, 24-year-old, died of a lack of oxygen to the brain caused by strangulation and chest compression. According to the Harris County Medical Examiner, they ruled it a homicide by the ME's office. The man in the video who's doing the choking still has yet to be charged. That doesn't mean he won't be charged, but it's taken a little bit to manifest itself. This happened back in May 28th, so it's been at least a week now that this happened. But apparently the customer was urinating outside of the Denny's.
Allegedly.
Yes, lawyers. He was allegedly urinating outside of the Denny's in public. The husband
that there was no urine found. Just that's why I had to point that out.
And the thing that's disturbing about this video, I see how all these non-Hispanic persons are blocking the camera, trying their best to block the camera.
So what you don't hear is them actually on the video saying, "Stop that!" The wife, I think, who's the sheriff's deputy, saying that she'll arrest him for continuing to videotape what's going on. And the person named is Terry Thompson, is the husband involved in this. But he took it upon himself to put this guy in a chokehold and wouldn't stop. And everybody, like you said, Kira, the people are actually stopping anyone from helping Mr. Hernandez while he is suffocating to death.
And it's disturbing. It really is disturbing because you're sitting there like, so why would you block anybody from helping? Why would you block anybody from videoing? Clearly, this is wrong. Clearly,
I want to know who those individuals are. Honestly,
I'm making a lot of assumptions on the inside that I really want to say, but I'm not going to say. But I'm looking at your black little leather vest on and your little motor jeans, and I'm wondering what's happening here in this area.
Yeah,
like in this particular area, this Denny's, what's going on? Like it seems not to be inclusive.
And this show doesn't. We talk about black issues a lot simply because that's what we're always up against. But injustice is injustice no matter what form it takes. I get on black people when they do stupid stuff. I get on Hispanics. I get on whites. I get on Asians. I get on everybody. And in this case, I'm extremely disappointed. This is a young Hispanic man that was killed by the stupid caucasity of, and that's my new favorite word to say, but the stupid caucasity of the elite in the form of police and police spouses. 7 days later, he still has not been charged. This is not even a police officer. He's the husband of a police officer. At any other time, I hate it when they say, well, we're investigating for a police officer to see if this, because usually it involves a police officer doing something in the commission of their actual duty and job. This wasn't his job to do, and yet and still they have not pressed charges against this man. I'm hoping that it happens, but here is another layer of the insulation that certain people get as it pertains to a minority.
And he does, and I'm looking at what I could see, that the young man wasn't a big guy. He was little. She looked to be, they probably would, if they had to spar, they'd been heads, you know what I mean? It would have been fair. But I don't understand why look at he doesn't look, he's small.
It's sad,
you see his legs kicking out. I mean, people are, no one is trying to help this man at all.
I wonder if I'm there, because I really feel like if I'm there, I'm in it. Like
this fat slob of a man laying on top of this dude.
And the young man, and then the lady who was actually the deputy,
right?
Yeah.
She's holding his arms down.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like,
they should both be charged with murder.
Absolutely.
They both should, and these individuals too, because what
is he doing? This one, the guy.
Yeah, this one and the girl. Yes, and the girl standing up.
Compliant too. He's part of it.
Yeah.
It's just so disappointing that a certain type of person feels that they have the right to do whatever they want. I mean, you don't even think about the consequences. You piss. So that equates to me getting the opportunity to throw you to the ground.
To confront you. That, I mean, you don't even have what right do you even have to confront him?
What kind of world do we live in where a man can't just take a piss in public anymore?
And I was thinking, because they said that his daughter was there as well. She was a 3-year-old daughter or something like that. I'm like,
saying, "Get off my daddy! Get off my, please stop hitting my daddy." And I'm like, okay,
my husband goes places with my daughter all the time. He can't take her to every restroom he goes in. You know what I mean? So I don't, and every restroom doesn't have. Every place doesn't have a family bathroom or whatever, so he can take her and him in the bathroom. So I'm not even sure what the circumstances were but I'm sure it wasn't worth him.
But we're not going to accept the story that they're putting out that he was urinating. First of all, that's just an assumption, because, like I said,
there was no urine found.
There was no urine found. There was no. They don't have any photos. They don't have
been
any
dry pissing. I don't know. But
well,
no matter what he was doing,
it wasn't worth
whatever
his life.
he did, didn't equate to murder.
No,
absolutely. Guaranteed 100.
No, what if he swung at him first?
But
it doesn't matter.
You don't kill anybody
right.
swinging.
Because he's
still like getting hit. It's not necessary force.
And guess what? You've got a trained officer standing right there, off duty or not. Surely she could have detained him or put him in some kind of. It's not that man's job, you could say, well, what about a citizen's arrest? You don't need a citizen's arrest when you have an officer standing right there who could have said, excuse me, sir, even though you are my husband, step aside, let me handle this. Matter of fact, what you can do is go call 911 real quick while I try my best to detain this guy or have a conversation or do whatever's necessary. If he swung on him, fine, do that. But no one has alleged that this man swung on him in the first place.
Well, actually, they are saying that
now
mm-hmm.
after the fact.
There's probably no video of that. There's probably no video of. Yeah, so we'll see. But that's the story.
I just want people to do better with life. I mean, at some point, we've got to learn that there are consequences for actions. And on top of that, there have to be consequences for actions because we don't have enough consequences coming out. So certain people continue to promulgate the same type of actions because, you know what? I know I'm the kind of person that's not going to get in that much trouble, even if it happens to me. That's where privilege is at its finest. It's a subconscious and a pervasive privilege that people have, and until we learn how to give consequences for those statutorily and in our voting, then it's going to continue.
Absolutely. Unfortunately.
Ladies, it has been a pleasure having you on this show. I mean, to see such beauty and intelligence just makes me shiver on the inside. I hope both of you can come back.
She has the coolest name ever.
Oh, Kira Law's attorney at law. It's almost like you bought that name.
Right. I did buy it though, y'all.
Did you marry it? Huh? Did you marry it?
I married into that name.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Was it Kira Doctor before?
It was Kira Cross. It was Cross before.
Okay.
That's good too.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the show. We ask that you subscribe to our show on all the major platforms, including you review our show on iTunes with constructive feedback. Share the Facebook Live post and the entire show with your family and friends, and donate. We need these coins to continue on to our mission to bring enriched and inspiring content each and every week. You can go to www.thesphere.tv/donate. Again, you can see us on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, www.thesphere.tv. Everywhere you want us to be, we are there for you. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at LegalMind. That's Mind with a Y because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Mika, where can they reach you?
713-570-6555. But the best way to get a hold of me is my email, myattorneyatlaw@gmail.com.
And when I say she's one of the best in the business at doing her civil rights thing, I've worked with her before. She is stellar. Stella Bella.
Thank you.
All right now.
Kira.
Oh, you can
even though they're going to see you in another hour on your own show.
Listen, find me at Twitter at the MDC Official on Twitter.
All right now.
The Twitter.
The Twitter.
The Twitter.
That's for the older generation.
Right.
Hope you've enjoyed the show today. We hope to see you next week for more content. That's our time, ladies and gentlemen. See you soon.